Good evening and welcome to our International Day of Peace Interfaith Service. I am Reverend Minna Bothwell and I serve here in Des Moines, Iowa at Capitol Hill Lutheran Church. This evening we gather virtually alongside people from all over the world. We gather together to observe a day set aside by the United Nations General Assembly, a 24-hour period of ceasefire around the world, but even more a day that calls us all to the peace that is even more than putting aside weapons, shaping peace together. This is what we will be called to do this evening. It is such a privilege and honor to be here with you this evening and to be able to introduce you to Ted Liddon-Hatton, who is an artist, a theologian, and an educator from Central Iowa. This evening he will be finishing the ephemeral piece of art he began earlier today as a way of shaping peace in this space. And as Ted has created this shape of peace in Des Moines, Iowa today, artists Joyce Magendie and Peace Magendie have created a corresponding shape of peace in Christchurch, New Zealand. Ted will tell us more about that in his reflections. Dancer Anna will be adding to the shaping of peace in this space as well. And this evening's observance is accompanied by harpist Kristen Maas, whose music will carry and create peace while it flows from her fingers and her instrument. As Ted and Kristen both shape peace here this evening, I invite you to commit to do the same and to ponder alongside them how we can continue to shape peace in a time of pandemic, uprising, and immense change.
In the eye of a dove, for the time being, the present, as the sun crosses over the celestial equator, when night and day are of equal length, the earth has eyes. The eyes of a dove, one on each side of the world. Two eyes in two different hemispheres twice, with one on the shaky ground of Christchurch, New Zealand, and the other here on the decidedly unstable ground of Iowa. For the time being, the earth is a dove, with eyes that are 8 feet wide, made with a food that the dove hopes to find: safflower seed, sunflower, millet, niger, and corn. Birds, like humans, depend heavily on sight, but they see much more than we see. The structure and sensitivity of birds' eyes makes it possible for them to see colors we cannot imagine. Some of them can see lines of the magnetic field, trailing from south to north, pointing toward freedom, plotting the way home. The eyes of a hawk face forward, typical of predator. Dove eyes are on the side of its head, typical of prey. This allows a dove to keep one eye out for danger while the other eye looks for food. It also means that the field of vision of a dove is more than twice that of humans, roughly 340 degrees. This means that a dove can see ahead and behind at the same time, the future and the past. The earth, now a dove, can see 340 degrees. It sees what we cannot begin to imagine. The earth, now dove, looks back. It sees where we have been, the wars we have lost, the pandemics we have survived, the peace we shaped and then reshaped, the hope we found and lost and found again. The earth, now dove, looks forward. It sees where we are headed. Future wars we will have the wisdom to avoid. The pandemics we will calmly contain. The peace we will shape and reshape together. The hope we will find along the way. The past and the future come together. They merge in the eye of the dove. A gesture of hope. Hope is the thing with feathers. Emily Dickinson wrote that line in 1861 at the beginning of the American Civil War. And by the war's end, 750,000 soldiers would be dead. Hope is the thing with feathers, she wrote, that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. If hope is the thing with feathers, it surely must be vulnerable. All things with feathers are vulnerable. Hope, I hear her saying, is as a bird, beautifully vulnerable, fleeting, and watchful, always watchful. Birds inhabit every corner of every continent. They are covered with feathers as they cover the earth. Birds are everywhere. So common, in fact, that they are difficult to notice, too numerous to take note, at times impossible to see, even when you know it's there, just like hope. The Order of the White Feather was a campaign to shame conscientious objectors during World War I. A single white feather was given to any man who refused to fight. Pacifism was just another name for cowardice, and young women were recruited to deliver the feathers and to double the shame. But pacifism is not the absence of courage. To stand for peace in the middle of war takes a different kind of courage, one that's a whole tone deeper, one that is rooted in hope. As Minna mentioned, the UN is asking the world to focus on shaping peace together, and they are asking that we would do so by exchanging signs of hope with one another. In some ways, hope is the foundation for peace, but hope is not solid. It is neither fixed nor permanent. One day it's there, and the next it's gone, carried away by the mere whisper of a word. In a world as precarious as this one, it is crucial that we name hope when we see it and share it when we find it. So this invitation is simple. The gesture that I am proposing is uncomplicated. When you see a feather on the ground, and you will see them because they are everywhere, pick it up. Hold the feather in your hand and feel that it is both weightless and incredibly strong, like hope. And then give it away. As a gesture of hope, give the found feather to whoever you're with, to a perfect stranger, to an imperfect enemy. Give it to someone who needs hope. Give it to someone who has given you hope. Hope in a world weighed down heavy by war. Hope in Christchurch, New Zealand, devastated by an earthquake, then shattered by a mass murder, 51 people in a mosque dead. Hope in Iowa, a global hotspot for COVID-19 where 1,265 people so far are dead. If the virus can crisscross this planet, riding the very air we breathe, surely hope can do the same, because hope is the thing with feathers. In a world as beautifully vulnerable as ours is right now, in this time of profound upheaval, hope can be difficult to notice, impossible to find, until we look and see that hope lies hidden at our feet. According to the people who count such things, there are roughly 400 billion birds at home in the sky right now. They're roosting in trees, foraging on the ground, and diving deep below the surface of the sea. Birds to humans, 50 to 1. The average songbird, the kind that fits nicely in the palm of your hand, has about 4,000 feathers. So with 400 billion birds, each with at least 4,000 feathers, usually much more, there are approximately 1,600 trillion feathers, give or take. Feathers that are flying, flitting, floating, and falling at any given moment for now. Once a bird has fully fledged, it begins the lifelong cycle of preening and molting and preening each of its many feathers. Molting begins when a bird relaxes the muscles surrounding the follicles that hold the feather in place. The bird simply lets it go. Time after time, year after year, feather upon feather, re-gifting them to the world. and a new one emerges before the old one finishes its fall. For the time being, here where the past and the future meet, where the dove, now earth, is laid bare, here where the birds and feathers are everywhere, we need only look in order to find, to open our eyes in order to see that the ground is covered in feathers and the world is covered with hope.
X.